Good morning and welcome to Money and Mindset with the Doctors. I'm Dr. Stephanie Ardrey, known as Dr. Money. Good morning.
I'm Dr. Thyonne, known as your Dr. Story Genius.
Good morning, TG. How you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm good.
Good. How has the day or week or month or whatever been treating you? It's a new month, so it should be treating you pretty good since it's pretty new.
Exactly. New month, going pretty good. Excited. Got a good grade from my finals.
Yay! You just let it go and say, you know what? I'm not sure what happened, but I'm going to just leave it alone.
Officially top of the class. You know, I got the grade in the top of the class. Woohoo! She's back.
Wait, from 0 to hero, right?
Yes.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic.
I was like, okay, all righty now. So I guess doing homework and studying, I guess that kind of is the important part of this process, huh?
Maybe not being in Jamaica and doing that. Yeah.
You know, I can't wait.
Sure you studied from now on.
Can't wait to get my book so that I could book my flight back to Jamaica.
Well, no, you have to stay here. You didn't do well when you studied in Jamaica.
Oh, yeah, right. Well, that's because I had some help.
No, I think it's because you have to study here.
That's not going to be a good idea.
That's, if you want to finish law school, I think that's going to be your best bet. You're going to have to stay put for a minute.
Well, don't speak that, but it looks like you might be right, at least for fall semester, because we are thinking that they're going to probably make us come back to campus starting August, fall. So I figured that I might as well do, well, I won't get over, I guess, wild for summer, but at least summer, I need to get back to Jamaica.
Well, take yourself a break, maybe a week or so, or a week or 2 or 3.
Right.
And then you come back to get things kicked off.
Exactly, because fall is going to be heavy. Of course, I have to make up the class from the professor that I shared my strong opinions of her, lack of emotional intelligence, which I still stand by the way.
You're not going to let that go.
But what I accept is that probably not blasting the professor as well as the dean and all the, folks of the university. Maybe in the future, I'll just leave my comments directed.
There's a time and place for everything. And that's what money and mindset is about. Because when you're talking about your money, and you are talking about money, even though you're talking about education, you're talking about the time that you're investing in it. And you're talking about the financial responsibility of investing in an education, especially in the United States. It's a costly proposition. And so even though you want to show up as your authentic self, mindset, I want to be me. Say what's right. Stand up for justice. We know we live in a country where that doesn't always bode well for us. And that's why we do a lot of, as African Americans, as Black people, we do a lot of code switching.
Yeah.
You might have to do a little code switching. Code switching.
You are so right.
We're talking like right now, we probably should be code switching on this show because, we're on camera. So code switching would mean we use our proper English and we do, but this is Money and Mindset Real Show. So we talk the way we talk. So I'm going to do that. But when I'm in my offices, in my academic setting, I don't always talk the way I talk and say, look, that's just not going to work that way. I may have to say, let's consider a different option when I'm Dr. Thyonne in an academic setting with a different set of cultural beings. And so we code switch. A lot of people will say, well, is that good for your mindset? Can you be authentic if you're code switching? Everybody code switches. You switch how you behave in different environments based on the environments that you're in. Actually, it's a great way of being. And there's a book called Kiss, Bow, or Shake Hands. And I can't think of the author's name. I'm going to have to look it up. But kiss, bow, or shake hands is about code switching, because when you go visit other countries, you are yourself, of course, but in appreciation of the people that you're with and in appreciation of the country that you're visiting and their culture, you may have to adapt the way you do something as simple as greeting. Do you kiss as you would do in France? Do you bow as you would do in China or Japan? Or do you shake hands as we do in America? And we, of course, would just go, because Americans are these cocky, arrogant people. And, I'm sorry to say it, but we're this white dominant male culture. And that privilege is sort of like, well, everybody should shake hands. Ha, 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 shake hands. But that's not the way to do it. When you're coming in someone else's house, if they bow, then you bow as well. It doesn't mean you're not being your authentic self. It means you're appreciating the other person and who they are and their culture. So all of that to say, so that your money stays right and you don't have to retake classes that cost you some extra money
and time,
you might have to.
Exactly. No, it's so funny because I was talking to one of my good classmates yesterday, and I told her, because this summer I'm going to have a class with this professor again. And I told her, I'm going to be quiet. I'm just going to put my head down and do my work.
I don't think it means you need to be quiet. It just means adapting into a culture that's a little different. You still speak, you still show up, because you don't want to have the extreme opposite. Stephanie doesn't participate. Stephanie doesn't speak out. She doesn't give an opinion. Not quite sure what type of lawyer she would make if she doesn't know how to speak up. So remember, you got extremes. You can't go extreme. You went extreme already. Now you can't go extreme the other way. You just got to pull yourself back in a little bit, rein it in. Hey, I went a little off the deep end telling you off. I get it. Let's get back to business, because I know how to speak up for myself without going way over that way. But, I had a bad day. We all have a bad day. I didn't shoot nobody. The cop that shot all those people, they said he had a bad day. That was, not the cop, but the guy, the murderer that killed the people, Asian American Pacific Islanders. That officer said he had a bad day. You really had a bad day. He was a murderer, but you had a bad day. And, you come back, you recover, and you get back on track. It's the same. It's what we do with our mindset. We recover, we get back on track. And that leads us into a discussion around money and mindset, where we really are in the midst of this recovery of COVID. And COVID has brought a lot of opportunity to a lot of people, but it's also brought a lot of tragedy, a lot of grief, and a lot of loss in terms of financial loss and in terms of people loss. How do we recover? How do we come back so that we're stronger than we were before? And we're kind of talking about this in the sense of your educational experience and how to recover from a setback where something happened, whether you did it or whether someone else did it or whether a combination of people did it. But how do we recover financially when we are just in this position? We're trying to do our small businesses. We're trying to do the things that we do in life. And it seems like the money ends just don't quite meet. The checks that are coming in don't cover the bills because we've had some kind of a setback, be it we had to pay for a funeral or we had to pay for some unforeseen costs or something happened and it took our money away as well as our breath away. How do we recover financially from financial setbacks? What does that look like?
Well, that is a really good first thing is I like to say, I call it my my SOS. And it's first you stop and you assess the situation. What is the situation? And one of my favorite tools, especially for entrepreneurs or busy professionals, a lot of times we don't have a lot of time to spend on doing updates to our strategic plans. But what I call my quick and dirty is you can do a quick, what is the situation? Bullet points. Business, last year we did $1 million. Right now we're at 500,000 and we're only halfway into the year. We're at 250, just bullet points. Last year we had 20 employees. Now we have 5, just bullet point, bullet point, bullet point. And our relationships with our customers, last year was this, right at this moment, it's this. So then also taking a reflection internally where you look at the organization's strengths and weaknesses. We call that the SWOT analysis. So I add under the SOS, the SWOT analysis, where we're looking at internal strengths and weaknesses, and then external opportunities and threats. And so with the SOS, I'm looking at the situation, what are the opportunities, and what are the appropriate strategies in order to implement as the upper, as the high level focus. And then within that understanding, what are the strengths and weaknesses, opportunities, and threats impacting the organization, which is so interesting because one of the points, which I'll circle back to as we progress in this conversation, is about the chain link theory, if you will, in terms of the organization. And there's a book. So anyway, that was my response.
So the first was, you said that SOS, stop and assess, look at what you have, where you've been. So you're talking about doing a look back. Then you're looking at, let's do a SWOT analysis on what happened. SWOT analysis, for anybody who doesn't know, that's your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, and your threats in your business. And you're saying take that SWOT analysis and divide it into 2 halves. First, internally, what are the strengths and the weaknesses of what has gone on and occurred in that assessment? And then the external is, what are the opportunities or the threats? So you're looking at what are those outside factors that maybe caused you to be here and that may still be there. Mm-hmm. That's a great way to look at it in terms of a SWOT analysis. What's the next step that you do though in this SOS? So you're assessing your situation. Now what?
And so then when you're looking at the opportunities, then you're determining, now that you've got an understanding of, say, for example, your strengths and weaknesses within the organization, how can you further advance some of the strengths that you've identified that the organization has? So for example, maybe you did go down in terms of the size of your team, but someone on the team stayed connected with the customers, and those customer experiences remained impactful. So that's a strength. So how can you now leverage those customer relationships that you've managed to continue to nurture, mm-hmm. to build upon, so that as you're ready to resume operations or grow and scale your operations, that you have this base that you can build upon, right? And then how can you be aware of perhaps where there were particular weaknesses in the organization that you can possibly mitigate? And mitigation doesn't always mean that necessarily you have to bring in a new teams internally. Sometimes you find when there's been this kind of disruption that there's opportunities for collaboration and strategic alliances. You may have some strengths and particular weaknesses that someone else that is closely aligned or in a complementary space where collectively the two of you working together, your organizations working together, or you as individual, solopreneurs working together can really shore up one another's opportunities. I think about that and how we work together so seamlessly when the pandemic hit. We didn't even have a, hey, we're going to do this. It was just a seamless, hey, you knew what I did. I know what you do. We knew about each other's kind of communities of who we influence. And you teed up, okay, this group of folks, you need to be at this stage if I'm going to send you over to Dr. Money. This other folks, I'm going to work with you and kind of get you to a place because you may not be ready for Dr. Money yet. And it was kind of that back and forth. And then I toss some people man, these people need a little bit more help than I have the capacity to give. Can you kind of give them some insight on the grants and some of these other opportunities? this business, they need some help with their stories. You know, just like you jumped in and gave feedback to the businesses that are in my training program. That's impactful. And that was seamless. We didn't have a conversation. It's just that we hold that space for one another as professionals, and quickly we can go, hey, you know, and it's not competition. It's a compliment. It's like that input makes the success for those entrepreneurs and makes what it is I'm hoping to accomplish more successful. If they have a better way of articulating their stories, that's excellent. So yeah, pass it to the story genius to help them get that done. You know, I don't have to have my fingerprint on everything, right?
Yeah, those students were great though. I love those students. So you're saying step 2 is once you assess things through that SWOT analysis, take one of those areas of the SWOT analysis, that opportunity area, and take a harder look at where you can leverage the opportunities that are there and how you can, actually, I guess you're looking at threats as well, because those threats are probably where you go to the disruptors and see how can those disruptors become something that you're in alignment with? How can you align with some of those threats and leverage the opportunities? So I think that's a great way to look at those two external things are what's going to help you get out of that rut or out of that financial bind. You're looking for that opportunity, that new product that comes about, that new service, that what happened with the customers? What is that thing that you have that worked? And how do you leverage it up? And even the thing that disrupted, how do you bring it in to align with what you're doing or figure out some kind of way so that it's a disruptor that works for you? So I love it. Is there another step on the SOS?
So the last part is then to develop your strategies so that you have specific actions, a plan of actions. Your strategies will hold your particular solutions and the tactics that you're going to use. So if you're going to focus, for example, on business development, right? You might want to look at what are some tools. Have you been using a CRM, a customer relationship management software, for example? Maybe pre-COVID, you hadn't had an opportunity to evaluate or begin using a tool such as that to boost up your sales. This might be a great time to look at having some type of tool because you want to re-engage with your customers. So you need to know where they're located and be able to activate the tools that can begin that communication, right? And also being open to some feedback as well as recognizing the competitive landscape. Because oftentimes what I find is people want to operate in their individual silos. And it's almost like if I don't believe there is any competition out there, then my customers won't either. It's like, no, your customers are experiencing the world and other solutions providers. And so the fact that you're trying to ignore them, you might be missing opportunities. And so that was kind of the point that I wanted to share, because in my break between school, right? Like I really have time, but I decided that I wanted to try to grab a couple of my books and see what I could read. So I picked up Richard Branson's Like a Virgin. And what he was talking about in chapter 2, he calls it the weakest link. Great customer service is a chain. And so he begins to tell a story about a gentleman who was aboard a British Airways flight, one of his major competitors. And the gentleman was on the flight leaving London, headed to New York. And just before the flight took off, realized that he had left his leather jacket in the executive lounge. So he tried to rush to the front, to see if they could let him go back. And they said, no, sir, we can't. But your jacket will be delivered to you at your destination. And so what British Airways did was they found his leather jacket and they flew it on the Concorde, and it beat him to New York from London. So when he deplaned, someone walked up and handed him his jacket. And so Richard's point was twofold. British Airways, one of his chief competitors, but he said, but we had to learn lessons from that outstanding customer service. And so now that they no longer exist, he's like, so Virgin can deliver that type of outstanding service. But the point being that understanding the competitive landscape, you can learn from those examples that some of your competitors use as part of their culture, as part of their delivery system. You know, when we talk about that value chain is how we get from concept or through production through that end customer. So all of those functions along that way, which is why he's talking about the link in the chain. There's a lot of functions, general administration, finance, you know, all of those different R&D, sales, marketing, you know, all of those IT, all of those functions within an organization. A lot of times solopreneurs think about it because, well, we're wearing all of those different hats. But I always like to have people realize that these are functions that make up a value chain. And you want to think about them because they require different skill sets. And you should expect that you're not going to be the expert in across all of the value chain requirements. So you should always have an awareness to look for other solution providers or other examples of how a particular functional domain can perform at its highest level. You know, be willing to model the example. And sometimes those examples come from your competitors.
Absolutely. Well, that's great. Strategy is the third part. Put your strategy together after you've assessed, found the opportunity, then you put that strategy together to match up whatever those opportunities are. And customer service is one that it's such it's a low hanging fruit that nobody likes to pick. It just amazes me, the poor customer service that's still out in the world, because it's something that has proven time and time again to build businesses to be powerhouses. I mean, I was a Virgin America groupie. I looked for that flight before any other flight and would tweet and say how disappointed I was that they didn't have a destination to here, and literally would get a response back. I remember when you mentioned Richard Branson, I actually was taking a flight and I just typed before getting on a Southwest flight, I typed, "I'm so upset with Virgin America." And then I had to get on the flight. By the time I got to it was like a little quick hour jaunt. And by the time I landed, I had a text back saying, "Please, what's going on? What happened?" And I was like, "Oh, I just meant I was upset because they didn't have a flight going to this destination, and you're my favorite airline." And of course, they were like, "Yay, we're glad that we're your favorite. We're looking at new routes there today." Da, 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 da. You know, it was sort of like, we're going to make sure you're happy. We're going to even put in a new route. Of course, they weren't going to put in a new route just for me. But that type of customer service, that type of looking at something where somebody says, "I'm so upset with them. Why? What did we do? What can we do to make it better?"
Absolutely.
Simple communication. They didn't even really do anything for customer service except acknowledge the customer. Yeah. So that SOS to bring us back on to a better financial path is an excellent way for me to return to our original conversation of giving Dr. Money, who just gave us wonderful financial tips, giving Dr. Money some mindset tips to return to her former teacher. Dr. Money, do you think you need a SOS to return?
Oh, I appreciate and receive the coaching that you've given me this morning. It's excellent coaching. And that's just it. You know, the thing is that we all need to have people who are willing to coach and give us perspective, right? So no, I received the coaching, and absolutely, you're correct. Why go from one extreme to the next? Find the middle ground and be able to be my authentic self, but also recognize the environment that I'm operating within, and stay focused on the outcome.
And use your tools. Use your tool.
Use my tool.
Already assess the situation. Leverage your opportunity that's in there, because you're going to be able to resonate something that she's got the disruptor, the threat.
Yeah.
To be able to leverage that in some kind of way with the lesson that you learned from working with her. You know, that strategy has to be, how do I align her to be my biggest champion?
Absolutely.
So my biggest coaching to you is to coach yourself with that SOS. Get your SOS together with that class and come out as that 0 to hero again, highest number in the class. That's what you want to come back with. That's what we want to hear the next time you've completed her class.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely.
I knew you were going to give me the answer for you. That always happens. I was like, I'm going to just ask her this question and watch. She's going to come back with her own answer and say, darn it.
Sometimes, right? I'm so guilty of getting in my head sometimes. And, it's that thing that you're so passionate and you think about just your care and love, right? And how, and your delivery, but it's about communications too. And it's about culture. So very much as you indicated, and what I think the thing that rubbed me or that I have in perspective is that the reason I keep circling back to this particular, professor failed to meet my expectations in terms of her emotional intelligence, because let's go back to now the university that you're talking about. The university and education is a business. We're investing our money and time for this education. The university is marketing to adult learners. I already have a doctorate, so I know how to learn. I've been through organized processes for a minute. I have a completed dissertation, so I've gone all the way through, right? And got the prize at the end. So I didn't enter into law school as a kid. I'm an adult. I'm a grown woman. And so so you're marketed to that it's a student-centric environment that is appropriate for adult learners. And then you run into a professor who's talking to you like you're a 5-year-old with no regard, completely disrespectful, chastising you, and you're going, wait a second, this is incongruent with the value proposition that this university promised. This is why I picked this university over that university, and you're failing. And it was just kind of that in the midst of the pandemic and all the pressures and all the other stuff. It was just like, are you kidding me? Somebody needs to say something.
Fail me now. No. I'm going to tell you that you cannot fail me now.
Right.
And again, as a people, when we talk about Black people and our experience and our struggle,
right.
Sometimes we haven't been able to give voice to how we feel because we always are code switching and staying in some box so that we fit in. So at some point, we do get to the point where we're like, you know what? It's time for me to speak up and just tell you what I need to tell you.
Yeah.
The key is we have to speak up sooner.
Yes.
Because when we speak up sooner, we speak up in a clear and assertive fashion versus, you know what? I'm fed up and I'm really just not going to take this anymore. When we speak up sooner, we can be very clear, and our argument, your argument was clear, but it was rather abrasive, in terms of
giving her back what she had given. You know what I mean? It was like, oh, I'm going to give it back to you finally. But you're right. It was explosive.
Yes, it was explosive. And so had each little piece that she was giving, you were sort of like, well, this is interesting. This is a little bit much that she's doing this. Okay, let me just put my head down and keep on going with the flow. This is not right. This is not what the value proposition is of this school. I don't feel like I'm being valued as a student. I don't feel like I'm being treated as an adult, but that's okay. I'm going to allow them to keep doing this to me, and I'm going to be able to push through it. I guess it's okay. Everyone else is pushing through it. And then all of a sudden it's like, you know what? Hell no, this is ridiculous. So earlier, you would have been able to address it differently. And it would have probably resulted in something different because it would have been a different letter going to her. Like, I'm struggling with this, a different type of emotional intelligence. Now, how she would have handled it, who knows? But at least it would have been earlier on in the process. And it wouldn't have been at a critical time where you're actually getting ready to take a test, having to turn something in, having to do this, So you could have course corrected along the way.
Yes.
But I know that it's going to be a successful class with her because you've done your SOS and will continue to do that and figure out how you will be in alignment with her. And I'm sure that you're going to have a great alignment and a great class. just like we had a good money and mindset today, teaching everyone how to recover, recovering from the financial setback. You're going to put out an SOS in that recovery by stopping and assessing the situation. Look at what happened. Where were you? Where can you go? Internal and external review. Internal being those strengths and weaknesses. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? Where are you there? External review being the opportunities and the threats. And then you take that external and find out how to leverage the opportunities and how to align or do something with those threats that are your disruptors. Finally, you put a strategy together, how you're going to work it out. So that's where your solutions come. And Dr. Money, you want to close us out?
Well, I think you just did a perfect bow on the box. You gave us an excellent recap. And for anyone that's thinking about restarting, we say tune into money and mindset, because you need both the mindset in order to get the money right for the business. And you need to make sure that you have that opening perspective. So you know where you can find us every Tuesday, 9 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time, right here, and join Dr. Story Genius and Dr. Money, and we're going to deliver for you some winning tips. So we hope to see you again next week. Same place, same time.
Dr. Money, is there anything going on with 420 Wellness?
Announcement next week.
Announcement next week. This month, May, Foster Care Awareness Month. Go to shereadyfoundation.org and check out what Tiffany Haddish is doing for foster care awareness and making sure that foster youth or youth that are in the foster care system are being supported, protected, and loved up on. We're loving up on them for the month of May for sure, and all throughout the year. You can join us. Go to shereadyfoundation.org and you'll see what's going on for Foster Care Awareness Month.
Fantastic. I'm so excited for you and Tiffany and that work. It's so important. So congratulations again. Congratulations to Tiffany. I saw a clip of her on Jimmy last night. Jimmy Kimmel. No, Jimmy Fallon last night, I guess. Yeah. And pink hair. Gorgeous.
She did go pink right before she left LA.
Oh my goodness. And Tiffany is Tiffany. So no matter where she goes, she is her authentic self.
She is. She breaks the rules though. So,
absolutely.
We all can break rules, but be ready.
Be ready. That's excellent. So everyone, we'll see you next week. Same time, same place. Have a great week.